Johor Bahru. If you have never heard of it, you are not alone. It is a city of about 1 million people in southern Malaysia, separated from Singapore by a narrow strait of water. 30 kilometers wide, flat, hot. For most of its history, unremarkable. Right now, it is building 4.5 times more data center capacity than it currently has. Microsoft announced its largest investment in Malaysia's 32-year history, $2.2 billion over 4 years. 3 data centers launched by the second quarter of 2025. More coming. Johor Bahru did not win this investment because it has the best technology ecosystem. It did not win because it has the most AI talent. It won because it has something that Singapore, 30 kilometers away, is running out of. Space, power, and a government that said yes before anyone else did. The cities winning the AI race in 2026 are not the ones most people are watching, and the infrastructure bets being placed right now will determine which cities matter in 2046. Most people are not paying attention to this race at all. The mainstream story about AI cities goes like this. San Francisco leads. Beijing follows. London and New York are in the mix. The same cities that dominated the technology economy of the past 20 years will dominate the AI economy of the next 20. That story is already out of date. The Global AI City Index 2025 ranks cities on their capacity, investment, and innovation in artificial intelligence across research, infrastructure, governance, and real-world deployment. The top 5 are Singapore, Seoul, Beijing, Dubai, and San Francisco. 3 of those 5 are not in the United States or Europe. Think about that for a moment. But the more revealing story is not in the top 5. It is in the cities rising fastest below them. Austin, Texas is now outperforming San Francisco in cost-adjusted AI salaries, with average compensation reaching $252,000 when adjusted for cost of living. In Europe, Warsaw and Tallinn are emerging as AI engineering hubs, driven by strong technical universities and operating costs, a fraction of London or Paris. In Latin America, Medellin and Bogota are positioning as near-shore AI service hubs for North American companies that want lower costs without moving offshore. And then there is Johor Bahru, doing something none of them are doing. It is not positioning as a talent hub or a startup ecosystem. It is positioning as the physical infrastructure behind the AI economy, the place where the servers live, the place where the power gets consumed, the place without which none of the AI models that billions of people use every day would function. In 1952, Rotterdam made a decision that most European cities did not understand at the time. The city had been devastated by World War II. The port was partially rebuilt, but Rotterdam's city planners looked at the emerging shipping technology and made a BET they built for ships that did not yet exist. The Rcae expansion, a massive land reclamation project that pushed the port into the North Sea, was built to accommodate vessels far larger than anything operating at the time. It was expensive, it was controversial, and it took decades to complete. By the 1980s, when container ships had grown to the size that Rotterdam had anticipated, the port was the only major European harbor with the depth and the space to handle them. Rotterdam became the largest port in the world and held that position for more than 40 years. The cities that built the infrastructure before the demand arrived captured the demand when it came. The cities that waited to see whether the demand would arrive spent the next 40 years watching Rotterdam handle cargo that could have been theirs. The data center build-out happening right now is the Rotterdam moment for AI infrastructure. The cities making the infrastructure BET in 2025 and 2026 are not responding to existing demand. They are building for demand that has not yet fully materialized. So the question is simple. Which cities are Rotterdam, and which cities are waiting on the shore. A Pew Research Center report published in October 2025 found that a third of all United States data centers are concentrated in just 3 states: Virginia, Texas, and California. Concentrated. 1/3 in 3 states. That concentration is not permanent. Virginia's data center corridor is beginning to face power grid constraints. California's energy costs and regulatory complexity are pushing investment toward neighboring states. Power and permitting are changing the map. IDC's 2026 Futurescape report projects that by 2027, 65% of cities worldwide will deploy AI agents across their systems and infrastructure. 65% of cities in 1 year. The energy dimension is the one most analysts are underweighting. Pew found that hyperscale data centers use as much electricity per year as 100,000 households. These facilities alone are expected to consume between 16 billion and 33 billion gallons of water annually by 2028. Read that again: 100,000 households per data center per year. Those numbers mean that the cities competing for AI infrastructure are not just competing for investment capital, they are competing for power grid capacity. India's NASSCOM published research showing that AI data cities could contribute $6.8 trillion to India's GDP between 2027 and 2047. $6.8 trillion from infrastructure decisions being made right now. Here is the dimension that almost no urban planning or technology analysis has connected yet. The cities losing the AI race are not losing because they lack talent or investment or technology policy. They are losing because they do not have enough electricity. This sounds almost absurd. We are talking about the most sophisticated technology in human history, and the limiting factor is power generation. But the data is unambiguous. Hyperscale AI facilities require power at a scale that strains regional grids. Cities that cannot guarantee stable, affordable, large-scale power supply are being passed over by the infrastructure investment that determines which cities become AI hubs. Johor Bahru's advantage over Singapore is not talent or regulation or cost alone. Singapore's power grid is approaching capacity constraints. Johor Bahru, with abundant land for solar and connection to Malaysia's national grid, can offer what Singapore increasingly cannot: guaranteed power at scale. The AI economy runs on electricity. The cities that understood this first are building the infrastructure. The cities that understood it second are watching the investment go elsewhere. McKinsey's March 2026 analysis described what is emerging as AI native public infrastructure. Cities managing transport, energy, water, health, and permitting not as slow-moving bureaucracies, but as continuously operating systems. The cities building toward this model are not doing it because AI is fashionable. They are doing it because the cities that do not will face a structural disadvantage that compounds every year. The gap persists. The infrastructure bet is not about AI. It is about what the next 20 years of economic geography looks like. Rotterdam did not become the world's largest port because it had the best sailors. It became the world's largest port because it built for ships that did not yet exist. Here is what the data actually shows about which cities are winning. The signal is not in which cities are announcing AI strategies. It is in which cities are breaking ground on power infrastructure. Virginia is expanding its data center corridor despite grid constraints, betting that power supply problems are solvable faster than losing the concentration advantage that has made it the global center of internet infrastructure for 20 years. Singapore is releasing an additional 300 megawatts of data center capacity between 2026 and 2028, carefully managed against sustainability targets. It is building as precisely as possible, maintaining the regulatory stability and connectivity advantages that make it the command center for Southeast Asia. Austin is growing as a city where AI companies can operate more cheaply than in San Francisco, while maintaining access to the same talent pool. The cost structure advantage compounds as San Francisco's operating costs continue to rise. The signal from the cities moving correctly is consistent. They are not trying to replicate Silicon Valley. They are building the specific advantages that Silicon Valley cannot replicate. Lower costs, more power, faster permitting, different talent pools. The infrastructure bet being placed in 2025 and 2026 will be visible in economic data by 2035. The cities that got it right will look obvious in hindsight. They will not have seemed obvious at all when the decisions were made. If you want to keep seeing the next layer before it becomes obvious to everyone else, this is where that happens. Every week, before the mainstream catches up. Johor Bahru is building 4.5 times more data center capacity than it currently has. Not because it is a technology leader, because it is 30 kilometers from a city that is running out of space and power, because it said yes to Microsoft when Singapore could not say yes as easily, because it understood that the AI economy runs on physical infrastructure, and physical infrastructure requires land, power, and a government willing to move. Rotterdam made the same bet in 1952, built for ships that did not yet exist, held the position of the world's largest port for 40 years. The cities watching Rotterdam build that port did not understand what they were watching until it was too late to catch up. The infrastructure bets being made right now will determine which cities matter in the AI economy. Most people are watching the wrong race. They are watching which company releases the best model, which country has the most AI researchers, which city has the most startups. That is not the race that matters. The race that matters is quieter. It is about who builds the infrastructure before the demand fully arrives. Who has the power when the servers need it? Who said yes when everyone else was still having the meeting? The next layer was always there. Now you can see it.